Hi, Charles. Anything you guys are working on in the medical spectrum? So many of you know that my dad is a doctor, my brother is a doctor, my uncle's a doctor. They've treated hundreds, if not thousands, of COVID patients. But now my uncle's actually an infectious disease doctor over in Hawaii. Dad and brother are both internists. They're primary care physicians. So medicine's been in the family a long time. My grandfather was an OBGYN. He went to medical school, I think, in the 1950s. And he delivered thousands of kids over his career. So it's near and dear to my heart, and I do a lot of agriculture work these days, and eventually that kind of dovetails into biotechnology. At some point, you're genetically engineering plants. At some point, you're doing all kinds of chicanery in a lab. In fact, I am just getting into mycology, and I have started growing mushrooms on my farm with a mycologist that actually left California, lived in Tahoe, and moved in with me. And the mycologist is actually figuring out how to grow lion's mane and reishi and oyster mushrooms and other such things. And actually, I love to sell some supplements for that. So if anything, I'm learning a lot about ag tech, and I'm learning a lot about biotech through that process. And we, of course, service lots of contracts or bid on lots of contracts throughout the world that involve ag tech or supply chain. Now, the most obvious intersection of Cardano and blockchain technology to the medical industry is the transmission of access rights for medical records. Blockchains are not good medical record databases, but they are very good audit logs and permission logs. So you have a situation where you have an EMR, an electronic medical record system. Let's say it's Open Vista or Epic or whatever. And let's say you are in the state of Virginia and you go skiing in Wyoming and Jackson Hole, and you roll down the mountain, break your leg, and now you have a compound fracture in your femur, quite serious. Okay, and you lose consciousness. The emergency medicine, they take you into the ER, and you're out. The doctor at the ER doesn't know who you are. He's never seen you before. He's never met you. Might not even know your name. Let's say you didn't have your driver's license on you, and somebody just found you. Okay, so there's a problem of how does that physician know your story to treat you properly? Now, in the United States, Virginia to Wyoming, maybe we can broker something out. Now let's extend the story. Let's say that you are skiing on a mountain in an African nation, and you are found a day later unconscious. You're still around, but barely. How does a doctor in Africa know who you are and get your medical records? What does the guy call and say, okay, this is so-and-so in Tanzania, and I found this person, I think it's John Smith. Can you send over all of his medical records so I know, all the relevant information to treat him? It's really hard to get that, okay, because there's no trust in that relationship. So blockchains are great because you can broker identity and you can broker access control, and you can create all kinds of protocols in certain events. Third parties can be entrusted to make judgments of whether things get brokered or not. So they can look at a record and they say, oh, Jane Smith is the person you contact. And they call up and say, I have John Smith here. He's unconscious. Here's a picture of him. Here's what's happened. I need to have you give me authorization for his medical record. So, oh, of course. And then all of a sudden the doctor can now send over all the files and give the doctors their access to those pieces of information so they can treat you. Okay? Very important, medical record portability, and I think that alone justifies blockchain's participation. Now, the actual storage of the medical records, the access control and change management, that audit log makes a lot of sense. Which doctors and nurses and other medical personnel touched your medical records? How did they touch them? When did they touch them? These things should be auditable, time-stamped, and immutable. But the actual records themselves are very pervasive. Like if I get body scans with CAT scans and MRIs, the data files would be in the gigabytes, perhaps terabytes with future imaging technology. And genetic sequences and these other things, you could easily look at a petabyte of data about a patient 20 years from now. It makes no sense to put that in an immutable format on a blockchain. So we will definitely look at medical records brokering and change and access control. I think that's quite non-controversial. And the easiest way to have that discussion is probably through a standards body. So one area that we'll probably, because we're now a member of that standards body, is the Hyperledger Foundation under the Linux Foundation, the Hyperledger group. we'll probably see if we can propose a Hyperledger project or some standard about access control, and perhaps even a DSL to manage the negotiation and movement of medical records. And we can make that cross blockchain.